And I just basically bought as many as possible. On the second home, I did a 10% down and I did it as a second home just because was low on capital. I was using my own money. And 8 years later, I was able to actually make multiple six figures and retire from my pharmacy job at the age of 31 because I was able to replace that income that I was making as a pharmacist with the rental income and cash flow from my specific student housing business model that I was doing with my rental.
Welcome to the Real Freedom Show, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Freedom, talking about building time and financial freedom through different opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. If you want to get started on your real estate investing journey, check out our website, freedomthroughrealestate.com. That's freedomthroughrealestate.com. We've got lots of great content, videos, podcast episodes for you to be able to watch. So today's episode, excited to talk about rent by the room model. You know, there's a lot of folks out there that are doing it. There's a lot of great advantages to doing it. And so today we've got our guest is Ryan Chaw. He has 15 units between California, Ohio, Alabama, was a pharmacist, built up stuff on the side. I love hearing that transition from people, you know, W-2 type job into real estate, being able to quit their job, replacing their income. So excited to hear your story, Ryan, and have you share it. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mike. Happy to be on.
So yeah, give us that background, kind of tell us, you know, why real estate and that transition into, you know, getting that first property, and we'll take it from there.
So actually, my grandpa was first into real estate. He was an immigrant from China, and he started off buying some properties in San Francisco. Back then, he had a lot of doors slammed on his face because there was a lot of actually racism back then in the 50s. But he was able to purchase a set of flats in San Francisco by, you know, saving up all of his money he was making in the military. I think he probably did a VA loan, and then he bought that back in the 50s when it was, you know, very cheap, like probably 100,000 or so. And since then, it's gone up like crazy. My parents were able to sell that set of flats for several $1,000,000. And not only was my grandpa was able to cover his own living expenses from the rent that he was getting from those properties, but he was able to create generational wealth and help cover part of my college tuition and that of my brothers as well. So I knew that real estate was one of the best ways to build generational wealth because it's one of those where it's very forgiving, right? Even if you aren't making like crazy amounts of cash flow, you still get a lot of money through appreciation that builds your wealth passively. So I wanted to get in as soon as possible. And in 2016, I basically graduated as a pharmacist. Well, 2015, I graduated. I started working out in 2016 and tried to put in as many hours as possible. I worked from 7:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night at the hospital. And so basically, I would work all this overtime, save up as much money as possible. And I started investing in real estate because I wanted to build up passive income. So I bought one property a year in California. Back then, my first property was only $262,000 in 2016. And I just basically bought as many as possible. On the second home, I did a 10% down and I did it as a second home just because was low on capital. I was using my own money. And 8 years later, I was able to actually make multiple six figures and retire from my pharmacy job at the age of 31 because I was able to replace that income that I was making as a pharmacist with the rental income and cash flow from my specific student housing business model that I was doing with my rentals.
Well, I love that you said generational wealth. That's really important for listeners to get their head around, because a lot of times people will feel, and obviously your margins are higher doing student housing, but it's like, I'm buying a house, I'm making $100 a month, $200 a month, $500 a month in cash flow. Like, Why am I doing that? And for people to realize there's all these other buckets too, right? It's the rent, it's the taxes, it's the appreciation, it's the paying down of the mortgage. All these little buckets add up to a big bucket, and it's over time. And like you said, it's forgiving, where over time that stuff's going to build and grow and grow and grow to where your grandpa was able to help pay for you to go to college. That's a really big deal. And so for
Oh
people
yeah.
listening to this, like, realize you can do that. You don't have to do that, right? You can do it if you want to, but you have the option to be able to do that for future generations or for other people in your family. That's what
Yeah.
real estate can really do. And so I'm excited that you got a chance to see that at a young age and see the power of it.
Yeah, definitely. I was definitely very blessed to see it firsthand right at the very beginning. And real estate, yeah, like you said, gives a lot of options. And, even if you don't want to quit your job, I could still be working as a pharmacist, 2 or 3, 4 days a week, but I have that choice to make
Mhm.
if I wanted to do it or not, or if I wanted to take a step back, maybe be more with my family, raise my kids or whatever, right, in the future. So yeah, that's what I love about real estate for sure.
So talk a little bit about the rent by the room model. What was intriguing about it? Did you decide right from day one that's what I want to do and I'm doing that and that's it? So I'd love to hear kind of why that model.
Yeah, so well, my friend, my college friend, actually did this when he was in college. He was renting out to his buddies. He bought a place very close to the school. I think it was only about a 4-minute drive away from campus or so. And he rented out by the room. His aunt helped him. I think she co-signed on the loan for the property. And not only was he living for free, but he was also making cash flow on top of that while, studying at college. And so I was like, well, if he can do it, I should be able to do it as well, right? And so back in 2016, I bought my first property at my alma mater college where I went to pharmacy school. And I rented it out basically to 4 students and was able to make a lot of cash flow by renting out per room. So typically, what I do now is I rent either 5 bedroom or 6 bedroom houses. I think my largest one is actually like 9 bedrooms. But when I started out, it was basically 5 or 6. So let's say, you get 6 students and they're each paying 600 or 700 a month. That's about $3,600 to $4,200 in rental income per property that you buy. And those were at the very beginning, it was just single family homes. Now I
Mhm.
have like duplexes where each side has 5 bedrooms each. So 650 dollars per room times 10 bedrooms is around like $6,500 in rental income. So
Mhm.
yeah, you can definitely make a lot more cash flow with this model. And it's essentially doubling or tripling the rental income that you would typically make on a rental.
Now, are these groups, and I'm sure it varies a little bit, but do they go into it knowing each other? Do some of them know each other? How do they feel about, doing the rent by the room versus, sometimes college students is like, hey, we're getting a house, we're signing one lease and we're all going in together versus doing the rent by the room model.
So out of my 15 properties, I have at least, I would say, a quarter to a third of them where they contacted me. They say, "Hey, I got a group of 5 other guys or 5 other friends. And we all want to live at this 6 bedroom house. It's perfect for us. This is exactly what we're looking for." And so they'll lease it out for a year, 2 years, sometimes 3 years, just because they all know each other. Maybe they're in the same like a service fraternity, or maybe they just all met each other in college. And so that works out very well. I have these 1 or 2 year, I mean, like 2 year leases with these groups of people. The other type of tenant is they want to live off campus, they want to save a lot of money. Maybe they're an international student or something like this, so they're paying extra money for tuition compared to people in the US. And so they're trying to save as much money as possible on the rent. So staying off campus makes sense for them, where they only pay $600 a month versus on campus, which is like $1,200 a month. Plus, they have a lot more privacy. So it's really a high in demand market. I mean, it's a very untapped market in a lot of colleges because you're charging half the amount and you're providing a lot more for them. It just makes sense for a lot of them. So I kind of pair up some of these students. Some of them will be like pharmacy students or dental students or medical students, and a lot of them are grad students because the campuses don't provide housing for graduate students. They only provide
Mhm.
housing for undergrads a lot of times. So I kind of pair them up, and I might have a pharmacy house, I might have a dentistry house, law degree house, whatever, right? And so yeah, I do my best to kind of match them up based off of the major and what year they are and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of the typical strategy.
How do you market these? Is some of it just come word of mouth from the tenants that are already there? Or are you marketing as a specific room, or are you trying to market it as a group of rooms? Hey, get people together. How does that work?
Yeah, so there's definitely some specific sites that I use to market. At the very beginning, I will go on to like Facebook groups. There's also obviously something called Loop, Craigslist. There's apartments.com. There's something called Avail, Avail, where you can post it and it'll blast your listing to multiple different sites like realtor.com, apartments.com, etc. And so you can start marketing there. But what I would say is once you start building your brand and reputation, most of your tenants will come through referrals. They'll basically tell their friends, hey, I got this really good place, very close to campus. He only charges $600 a month. You have your own amenities, you have your own furniture, or sorry, the furniture is already provided. It's very close to campus. It just makes a lot of sense. So what happens is, maybe 50% of the students, they'll stay another year or another 2 years. And then the other 50%, they'll bring in their friends essentially. And they'll say, oh, we have an open room next year. Hey, is it okay if I bring in, my friend Jeremy or whatever, to room with or house with me, be in the same house with me?
Have you run into concerns about living with people that they don't know right out of the gate? Do you try to facilitate like a meet and greet before they sign on the dotted line for those that it's not a group of people coming in together? It's, hey, I'm just renting one room. How much you try to help that or help them feel comfortable, or just because of the reputation you have, people feel comfortable doing it and they're okay going into something where they may not know the other people that they're living with?
Yeah, it depends if you're just starting out versus if you've been in it for a while. If you've built up your reputation, a lot of times they just, I mean, I guess I'm pretty popular nearby my campus, being known as the landlord who has places very close to campus and provides everything for them. So right now, I kind of just get people and they already trust me and know me
Hmm.
because they trust their friend, and so that trust kind of
Hmm.
passes on to you. And one big thing for marketing is that people only buy from people that they trust and feel comfortable with, right?
Hmm.
So that trust by word of mouth, it does pass on to you as a landlord eventually. But at the beginning, yes, sometimes they wonder who are our other housemates, who is the landlord. And so a lot of times I get on the phone with them and explain the situation. I will sometimes get them in contact with each other before they actually move in with each other as well. So I'll kind
Hmm.
of ask them permission. Do you want to share contacts, etc., that type of thing, and maybe do a group chat. The other thing is I do open houses, and so I'll have everyone come in on one day. And so they can kind of meet each other as well and get to see the house. And they also get to see that there's a lot of demand for that house because they see like three other people. Oh, that person might take the room that I want. So they're like,
Hmm.
okay, I better apply quickly. I better get a signed lease as soon as possible. So yeah, that's what I do.
Now, for the houses, because you're focusing on by the bedroom, what types of common areas? I know it differs by the house, but just for people interested in kind of this model, common areas, and then how do you work through, right, having a lot of folks sharing those spaces? And so, what do you try to help provide to create a good living environment for them? Where I'm just thinking like as me as a college student, it's like it's the fridge space, the cooking, cleaning, that kind of stuff. How are you able to
Right.
kind of help make things work well together for that many people in those spaces?
Yeah, definitely. So it's up to you. Because you have more cash flow, you can actually hire on regular cleaning services. If you wanted to do like, maid cleaning once a quarter, once a month. I provide once a quarter maid cleanings. They charge me $180 per cleaning, but I basically do it every 3 months, and that usually keeps the place really clean. A lot of times the parents may help out a little bit as well. That when they visit
Mhm.
their kids, they might help clean up a bit. And then, you could work out a deal with a local Airbnb cleaner. That's how I found my cleaners. Is I basically went to Turno, Turno, and basically there's a list of Airbnb cleaners you can kind of vet and have maybe hire them to do a regular cleaning service. But with that being said, yeah, students don't need too much common space as well. That's another thing. They kind of stick. They mainly hang out in their own rooms, like watching Netflix or whatever, or they're out studying. So what's nice is if you have like a family room, living room, and dining room, all you really need to do is have one big, nice common space. So let's say you make the dining room or the family room the main common space, and then you can turn the other two into bedrooms. So you can turn let's say if you made the living room the common space, then you turn the family room and the dining room into bedrooms that they could stay in. So what's nice about this is most of the times the students spend most of the time in their room rather than the common space, so you can maximize the number of bedrooms.
And obviously, the people choosing to live there know what they're walking into, so you're attracting the type of person that's okay with that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
Mhm.
talk a little bit about, is there regulations or things like that that you might run into, capacity, fire codes, anything like that that might
Sure.
be different than the more traditional model?
Yeah, exactly. So you have to make sure you're following all building codes and all of that, especially when you build a bedroom. You can't build a bedroom, for example, that's only 6 foot in height because that's not meeting the building code. You need at least 7 foot in height. You also have to have some sort of egress. So a window or an exterior door, some way that they can get to the outside of the house from their bedroom in case of a fire or something like that. So you have to make sure you meet those codes. Another thing is there are some ordinances in some cities that have restrictions on how many unrelated tenants you're allowed to have.
Mhm.
So a lot of the cities, I would say a good amount of them don't have them, but the ones that do, you might have to do something like a change of use permit, to change the use of the house into a rooming house or boarding house. And once that's approved, you can go ahead and do your thing. Another option is something called a zoning variance. Now, zoning variances are a lot more complicated, I would say. So ideally, you don't have to do that. But what I would recommend is talk to a local real estate attorney. A lot of them will do a quick 30-minute consult for free. And I always do that when I'm getting into a new market to see, what are the restrictions? What are the ways we can make sure that we are in compliance with the law? And like I said, there's plenty of options like change of use, etc. But yeah, you always want to check out for unrelated tenant restrictions.
Now, as you're choosing these properties, and I'm sure you've learned a lot over time, you've gotten sharper in picking out the properties. But talk about maybe what you're looking for. Like if hey, I'm interested picking up my next property in the same city, what are
Yeah.
some maybe things you're looking for to decide whether or not to move forward?
Yeah, so there are three things that students care about. The first one is convenience and proximity to campus. So, how close am I to my 8 a.m. classes, essentially, right? I don't want to be waking up at 6:30 a.m. to commute to my classes. So, they want to be as close as possible. The second thing is safety. So, you really have to do your research. And a lot of times I go on to Reddit because Reddit is basically the word of mouth for students. And if you think about if how students figure out where to stay, they talk to their upperclassmen friends and say, "Hey, where did you stay off campus?" Right? So you really want to get into the figure out what the word of mouth best neighborhoods to stay in is. So like for me, it might be like Little Italy is one of the buzzwords put out there. So I really want to do my research on Reddit, talk to some students directly, maybe call up the student housing department on campus and ask them, "Hey, where are some areas that I maybe should stay away from?" Or areas that I should maybe stay for off-campus housing, that type of stuff. So safety is number two. And then the third, and I guess one question is like, if you were to drive from your house to the college, if you were the parent of the kid, right, and you were to drive from your house to the campus, would you feel safe, or would you be passing through neighborhoods you wouldn't want your kids to be passing through? And then the third one is affordability. So obviously, we have to make sure what people are charging in rent as the market rent and see what students have as their budget because students have very specific budgets. And if you're above their budget, they'll say no to your listing. And even if it's like $20 more than what their budget is, they will say no. So if you're at
Mhm.
650, or let's say you're at 670 and their budget is 650, they will still say no to you. So you have to know what their budget is. So as far as houses though, obviously close to campus, safe area, and large enough size that I can put like 2 or 3 extra bedrooms in there so I can get it into ideally a 6 bedroom house. That's kind of like the sweet spot. Um, and so I look for at least 1,500 square foot or more. And I have a rule of divide by 300. So if you take the total square footage and divide it by 300, that's how many bedrooms you can get, most likely. So if it's like 1,500 square foot, divide that by 300, you can get at least 5 bedrooms in there. For 1,800 square foot or more, that's probably at least 6 bedrooms because 1,800 divided by 300 is six.
Now, I'd love to hear you talk because you've got some of these out state where I'm already thinking here in my questions is going out of state, how are you kind of finding some of these properties and vetting them out? So talk about getting outside of California and looking at
Yeah.
some other states to find some good opportunities with that model.
Yeah, so I'm also in Alabama and Ohio in addition to California. And what I did to find these colleges is I basically looked at the top colleges on like the new US News World Report. And I really want to look for colleges that have a lot of graduate programs, a lot of opportunities for higher education. So, for example, MD, like medical doctor, pharmacy, dentistry, law degree, JD, right? MBA, which is, the business degree, engineering degrees, right? So I really look for colleges that have a lot of opportunities for these students, especially for graduate students, because most of the campuses cannot provide enough housing for graduate students. They provide for undergrad, but not so much graduate students. So you have these 3,000, 4,000 grad students at some of these colleges that have no on-campus housing available to them, so they have to live off campus. And so it's a really good market. It's a really good tenant base. I like to have these people who are studying for their, medical degrees and law degrees and et cetera, because they're really focused on their studies and they're not there to throw a wild house party or animal house party
Mhm.
or whatever, right? So that's where I start, is I look for the top colleges and the degrees offered.
Did you travel to those states before you picked out those properties? Did you find somebody boots on the ground, or how were you able to acquire those
Yeah, I
living in
actually did
California?
buy my first couple properties sight unseen. I eventually did travel to Ohio, probably around the third property. Yeah, on the third property to actually visit it. But a lot of this, yeah, you can actually purchase as long as you do the research necessary. And there's a lot of technology out there. So,
Mhm.
like for example, to see the property, you can just do a Zoom room with your agent, and they can do a full walkthrough. And you can pick out all the issues with the property just from doing, Zoom walkthroughs. And you can even have them drive around the neighborhood and show you kind of what the neighborhood looks like, right? And drive from the house to the school to see if there's any bad areas that you're passing through, that type of stuff. So, I do rely a lot on the technology available. And you don't necessarily have to be on campus in order to market your bedrooms, right? Because a lot
Mhm.
of students will be on Facebook groups. They will be on these affiliate groups with the university, some of these off-campus affiliate groups that the university offers. So, yeah, you really don't need to be there in person. And a lot of times, just like Airbnb, if you need somebody to enter the property, you provide the lockbox code, and then they can get in, get out, do what they need to do. And then, like, let's say it's a handyman, they send you a bill, and then you just, pay them electronically through Zelle or through a check or whatever, right?
Was the thought process on maybe diversifying outside of the existing market to be able to see, is there maybe a place where I could hit better numbers, or is it just, hey, if I find a couple ones that work, maybe I'll grow more in Ohio if Ohio tends to be more lucrative, or, what was kind of the thought process there?
Yeah, I do like pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. And I was like, if I just do, and I was very scared of actually investing out of state. I've never done it before. It was a big leap for me. So, I said, I basically have to just decide on doing it. Otherwise, I'm going to be stuck in California forever. Right. And so
Hmm.
I wanted to be able to, you know, invest in all different markets and diversify, like you mentioned. And so I was like, I just got to do this. So I think it was year 5 or so. I was like, okay, this is the year I'm going to buy at least one out of state one and see how it goes, right? And so that's what I did. My first one was in Alabama. And then I decided on Ohio, and basically it was running the numbers, seeing what, the what college there was out there, the majors, the nearby hospitals as well, because the one I invested in, it's nearby Cleveland Clinic, which employs a lot of hospital workers. So I not only get students, but I get like medical residents and medical fellows. And so, that's kind of how I started investing out of state, is the cash flow was really high because the mortgage payment was a lot lower. I was able to buy houses in $200,000 ranges and low $300,000 ranges. And these are huge houses, Like I said, one of them I bought for 367,000 and it's actually technically 10 bedrooms, but I had 9 people live in it. So,
Hmm.
yeah, there's a lot out there for sure.
And talk about that transition of moving from, working a job, trying to do all this stuff on the side to then saying, okay, I'm good. I can quit my job.
Yeah, that was a long, well, I guess it was an 8-year journey essentially, but at the beginning, I didn't think I would like be able to quit necessarily. I was just trying to build my wealth, and have an additional income source. But eventually, around year 6 or 7, I realized if I just had, two more properties or so, I would have basically covered my pharmacy income. So at that point, if I'm already making enough from my rentals to cover the full pharmacist income, minus vacancies and expenses and all that, if my net is above my pharmacy income, then I can go ahead and quit. Why not? Right. And so I kind of molded over and I was like, okay, I'm going to set a quit date. And so I just aimed for that quit date. And when that came, I ended up retiring.
I'm curious, how much were coworkers aware of what you were doing? Like, did they know that? Did you talk about it or not?
Yeah, a lot of them didn't believe me. They're like, yeah, he's not going to do it. They
Yep.
kept saying, Ryan's not going to do it. He's just talking. But no, yeah, some of them knew me more well, and they're like, yeah, I know Ryan's going to do it. So yeah, time came, and threw a retirement party at Roost Chris Steakhouse. I treated everyone actually. I think the bill was
Mhm.
like 3,000 or something. But yeah, I just treated everyone, and then I retired, and it was great. It's fun.
And then you just handed out your business cards and say, "Hey, do you want to do the same? Here we go."
Not really. Actually, I did have one of my former coworkers sign up as a, for the mentorship that I do now. But yeah, other than that, no, I wasn't like handing out cards. But yeah, there were some people who were kind of interested, of course.
Yeah, the people that know you, that's the best testimony right there. When they see you quit and throw a retirement party for yourself,
Yeah, yeah,
boom, I
true.
want to do that too.
Yeah. So yeah, one of my coworkers, she was actually my pharmacy technician. She has a place in Texas now, Houston, Texas, and they have their place rented out with students at University of Houston. So it's great. Yeah. She was able to, get a good property, and I was able to show her everything.
Have you ever heard the phrase, you're the average of the top 5 people that you hang around? Well, real estate agents, I'm excited to increase your 5 with you. We're launching the Real Freedom Investor Agent Tribe to help you get educated and connect with others to build your real estate investing journey, and also to help you along the way as you're working with real estate investors. So come check it out on our website, realfreedom.com. Go to the store. We have a membership, we have a mastermind group, and private coaching to help you stay accountable to your real estate investing goals and to make sure that you connect with like-minded people to accelerate your progress and to cheer you on along the way. Check it out, realfreedom.com. Click on the store. What does life look like now, having retired, and what do you want to continue to do in the future here?
Nowadays, I just focus on, of course, reinvesting the cash flow. My goal is to get to, I mean, it didn't used to be like this, but I like to push myself. My goal is to eventually get at some point in my life to like 100 student rentals,
Hmm.
because I just love doing it. I love providing that service. I personally can relate to these college students. I had one college student who was in pharmacy school, and he was like, wow, I heard you got into Kaiser hospital as an infectious disease pharmacist. I would love to learn from your story. Do you have any tips for what I should be doing in college? And I was able to, get on the phone call with them for like an hour and a half and answer all their questions, and it's very rewarding to be able to kind of connect with those tenants, right? And because you
Hmm.
went through it, you know what they're going through. So I like providing that service, and of course providing really good housing for them so that they can use their time to focus on their studies rather than having to worry about a beat up house or a lot of uh, pest infestations or whatnot, right?
Hmm.
So I like providing that service, and I just want to continue to expand that. I also teach others how to do this. I've taught over 60 clients so far, and we're in pretty much all, like, a lot of the different United States out there. So there's like Florida, Georgia, Washington, California, obviously North Carolina, Washington, Texas. There's a ton of the different states that they're investing in, and you can do this locally. Um, I've never found a state where the numbers don't make sense using this
Hmm.
model. So yeah, I continue to teach people through this whole process.
Well, that's the thing. I think whatever model it is, people are always thinking like, well, what's the one place where I can go and do this, or what's the best place in the United States? And the
Yeah,
reality is it's everywhere, right? There might be
yeah,
some where certain cities, certain states might tend to lean more towards a better opportunity depending on the model, but you can do it anywhere, right? The numbers might be better. And so I think for people listening, like start where you know, start where you're comfortable, look at some numbers and see, and then maybe pick one or two or three other places, see if the numbers look better than that or worse than that, right? But you're not going to know until you get started. That's what I really encourage people to do, is pick a spot, see how the numbers work out, versus this paralysis by analysis, thinking like there's only one place in the US where this might work.
yeah, exactly. Totally agree with that. I think a lot of people think they're looking for the perfect place, but there is no like perfect place, right? There's obviously a lot of factors you want to look into, but you just get a good enough property for your first property and get started, right? And then the second one, now you know a little bit more about renting out to people and to students. And then you can just improve on it a little bit every time, because at the beginning, the first property, there's going to be a lot of hidden stuff that you don't know and you're never going to be aware of until you actually buy your first property, right? So just get
Mhm.
that first one. It doesn't have to be perfect.
And for little teaser here for people that are going to reach out to you here, people that are going to look into you, your website's got a great, I don't know if it's horror story, but a great example of how you've gotten better, right? You've learned from mistakes, you've learned from challenges and grown and gotten better. So I enjoyed reading some of those difficult things that you had to work through and get there. So
Oh yeah.
absolutely, you're going to go through challenges regardless of what you do.
Yep, definitely. It's a journey. Every journey has challenges, and you take them one step at a time, and you get through them, and you become a better version of yourself throughout the process. That's the one thing that nothing can take away from you is you become a better person throughout it, and so you get better and better and master the skills you need to continue to invest and make money in real estate. And so it's a never-ending process.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. For people that want to reach out to you, learn more about this model, learn more about what you're doing, how can they do so?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me. I provide a free PDF guide on how to do this student housing, my specific strategy, some of the obstacles that I encountered and mistakes I made, etc. And you can get that at www.newbierealestateinvesting.com/guide. That's www.newbierealestateinvesting.com/guide. And newbie is spelled Newbie. And I also send out regular updates, weekly updates on, some new lesson that I learned throughout my journey, maybe a mistake I made and learned from, and some of the numbers behind the strategy as well, how to run the deal analysis and all of that type of stuff. But yeah, it's a really great strategy. It's really underutilized, and you typically double or triple the rental income simply by getting to 6 bedrooms and renting each bedroom out for 600, 700 a piece.
Absolutely. I agree. I've run numbers on stuff like this. And so you've got a nice little niche there. And so congrats on what you're doing, and excited to see what you continue to build and see you get to that 100 units.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mike.
Well, thanks, Ryan, for coming on and sharing your story, and best of luck to you in the future.